Okay, so next up, we're going to introduce Josh Youseff. Josh is running for our state Senate seat that is being given up by Jim Forsyth. Go ahead.
First, I want to thank Ed and Barb for opening their home, and beautiful home it is, and welcoming us all here and advancing the cause of liberty. My name is Josh Youseff, and I was born and raised in Laconia, New Hampshire, and I've lived here for all but 3 years of my life when I escaped for a couple of years and wanted to try California, and I'm back because I'm a small business owner and have been for my entire professional career. I've owned small businesses in the district for, well, since 1995 now, I think it is. And I understand firsthand exactly the challenges that a small business owner faces when trying to plant his roots here in New Hampshire. And then, after the roots are planted, how to cause that business to grow and flourish and thrive. Like I said, I live in Laconia, New Hampshire, and what drove me to run for the state Senate here, well, there are a number of different reasons, but New Hampshire is at a critical economic crossroads. And the decisions that we make right now in this election cycle are going to determine exactly which direction this ship is going to be sailing in. Are we going to be sailing in the direction toward the witches right out there, which is the bane of every sailor on Winnipesaukee existence? Or are we going to be sailing towards brighter days, economically and otherwise? You know, I have driven the corridor between, say, Alton and Franklin, which essentially is the corridor that goes all the way through, between the two polar ends of the district, District 7 that we're in right now, and I see far too many for lease signs or for rent signs that are hanging in the windows of buildings that used to have signs of prospering businesses. And I just look left and right while driving down that corridor, Route 3 for example, or Route 11 it becomes, and I ask myself, how have we become the state that has been so difficult, this live free or die state has become so difficult to do business in? And of course, the important thing, or one of the most important subject items of this election is jobs, jobs, jobs. But jobs just don't appear out of thin air. Jobs are the result, of course, of productivity, of production, of making widgets and doodads and products and services and selling them inside of our boundaries, of our state boundaries, and exporting them outside of our state boundaries. We need to encourage businesses to plant their roots here. But I can tell you firsthand that I'm in contact with a number of businesses and even larger businesses that I do business with out of state that say, you know, New Hampshire is a cost prohibitive place to do business. We can't afford the property taxes to put a new factory in New Hampshire. We can't afford the cost of energy to be able to run our equipment to produce these widgets and doodads and what have you. And so as a result, a factory that may have employed 700 or 1,000 people and brought them to this state to spend their earnings and to enjoy the New Hampshire advantage, they've chosen other locations to do business in. And it is my objective to be, as Kevin said so eloquently and so accurately, we need to modernize the system which allows people to create a business or register a business online from their living room. But not only that, we need to take a look at the burdens that are being imposed on the businesses so that they will be encouraged to create jobs and thereby expand the size of the economy. Just bringing jobs in and out of the economy is one thing, but expanding the overall size of our economy is going to be beneficial for New Hampshire. Now, segue from the jobs and economy, of course, relative to jobs, we have a right to work concern, and I'm very much pro right to work. I believe that it's a two-way street. Should you elect to join a union, then that should be well within your purview, and should you elect not to join a union, that should also be well within your discretion. And I believe it's a two-way street, and I strongly support right to work. Now, I am in a contested primary, and I believe that it's very important that people understand the distinction between the candidates. The only Republican candidate for this Senate seat that has taken the pledge to never vote for a sales or income tax. The other alternative in this race has not so said. And I believe that that is very un-New Hampshire. New Hampshire is the home of no taxes, no sales, no income tax. We need to seek alternative revenue sources, but even more importantly than seeking alternative revenue sources, and far more important to that, is reducing the size of government. I am about government having its proper role, which is the protection of life, liberty, and property, and the effectuation of commerce by creating an economic and physical infrastructure. Beyond that, the government needs to get its hands out of our business. We need to deregulate small business. We need to get out of the petty nanny business that the state of New Hampshire is in. And I would say, in closing, that I do appreciate your coming. I would ask that you would consider me and vote for me for your next, to occupy this, actually the first Senate seat of this newly formed District 7. And I can assure you that a vote for me is a vote for liberty. Thank you very much.
So is there questions? Go ahead, David.
Well, a couple observations first. Too many damn engineers in this place.
What? Aren't you tired of politicians though?
Well, you know, unfortunately, I went to the dark side, but I still qualify. I'd like to commend Mr. Youseff for saying one thing: life, liberty, and property, which was originalist, as opposed to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. And I think that's an important distinction, as our current government's trying to take away all my property.
Is there any more questions? Skip, go ahead.
Both you, and this is a question for both you and Josh, Kevin. Both of you have said that we need a smaller, more limited government here, and that you want to reduce the business taxes to make it a more business-friendly state.
Yep.
Which leaves one of the biggest revenue sources is really the federal government. Now, we have now just had, or will about to have, the fourth consecutive year of a $1 trillion deficit. We are now going to top 16 trillion in just a few short months for our total debt, well above 100% of our GDP. At some point that becomes unsustainable. Now the problem here is that New Hampshire derives much of its income from the federal government. What are your plans on safeguarding New Hampshire for when that money finally runs out? I know that as a budget committee member, I warned the town of Guilford, at some point the state money is going to run out.
Right.
And there was lots of kvetching when the retirement percentages dropped dramatically. And they said, well, we have to cut, we can't cut our budgets, we have to pay for so much more because the money ran out. Well, gee, I've only been saying it for 4 years.
Right.
So what's your plan for New Hampshire?
Is there any more questions?
That was for Josh as well.
Okay, go ahead, Josh.
Well, for me, Skip, this is there are a couple of components to this. First of all, government's a fat cat. The more you feed it, the more it is going to eat. I agree with Kevin that we need to end the addiction to federal money, and we need to bring the needle back to the center, and we need to understand what the proper role of government is. We need to understand that the government is enjoined with the, is charged with the duty of protecting certain interests. The Constitution is a restrictive document. We need to, when we get to the place in the budget where we're unable to continue to cut line items, what we need to do is look at agencies and cut layers of management or cut agencies altogether. We need to reduce the overall size of government. So that's the short answer right there.
GrokTV.